Welcome to Pera's Playbook. This is your host, Alex Pera. Let's open up our playbook and see who our guest is. Please enjoy. Welcome to episode 175 of Pera's Playbook. Today I'm joined by Kavi Raz. He's an actor. He owns a production company. He's probably most known for playing Dr. Vijay Kochar on Saint Elsewhere. He's also had appearances on MASH, The A-Team, Star Trek Next Generation, Home Improvement, and the 1989 Pet Semetary film. So we're happy to have Kavi here today. How's it going?
Going really well, Alex. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and I'm really looking forward to sharing some of my life experiences with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I always know you from MASH. I ended up watching Saint Elsewhere, which I'd like to watch some more of, but I always knew you from MASH because I was a huge MASH fan growing up, and that's a very funny episode that you have a part in. I mean, we'll talk about that later on here in the episode. But one thing that I find interesting is the journey, how everyone got into acting. And I've recently talked with some other actors that they didn't start in acting. They started in banking or whatnot. And I know you have a similar story. You went to school for engineering
Yes, I
before
did.
you got into acting. So why don't we start there?
Yeah. So I was on a very technical side of life, engineering, industrial engineering of all. And I worked as an engineer for a while. I also worked as a journeyman machinist. We were making, I worked for this company called ClickLock. It's no longer in existence. We made packaging machines. And but on the side, I was doing theater. This was in the Bay Area in San Francisco. I went to San Jose State University. And so one day I just decided that, no, if I want to act, then I need to pursue this professionally and fully. And I just quit my job one day and made this journey to Los Angeles from the Bay Area. And never looked back.
Did you enjoy engineering?
I did. I mean, there's a little bit of that still in me. I've forgotten a lot of the things. My specialty was metallurgy and machine tool technology. When things come up in life that are related to that, I fondly remember what I've learned and what I know, the knowledge that I have, and I try to apply that. And it's sort of like it's almost like I know something more than what I do. It's a good feeling.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that go for a degree and maybe they work a job for a little bit and then they end up going a completely different direction. And that degree is never wasted.
I don't think so, because I may not be in touch with what I learned in my education. I actually went all the way. I did a master's in industrial engineering, but I think it forms a nice foundation, and there's nothing better than an actor who can think and who has knowledge beyond the field of acting. It just helps. It helps you all around. And it makes you a very well-rounded sort of a person. I had a professor at San Jose State in one of my classes, and he would always say that even if you just came to the campus and walked around and never really attended any classes, you'll still go home and by the end of the day having learned something, because the atmosphere is such. And you're in the right environment. And I think that has a lot to do with having some sort of an educational background. And it may not be for everybody, but I think it helps.
Yeah, I know for me personally, the degree I went for at college, I'm not really using. There's there's specific classes that I took that I might be using because I had to take extracurriculars. But I think some of the skills you just get in college, time management and working with other people, like all of that stuff, even if you just put the actual learning aside, there's just so many skills you get that can benefit you.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
So I know also in your early life, you were into field hockey. And you captained the U.S. field hockey team.
Yes, I did. Yes. That was in the 70s and starting mid 70s and to all the way to early 80s. I almost missed playing. I was very close to playing in the '84 Olympics in Los Angeles, representing the USA. USA qualified for the by virtue of being the host. USA is not very highly ranked in field hockey worldwide. I think we're somewhere around 22nd even now. And but I was busy on St. Elsewhere, and I had another project called Warning Sign, this feature film that I was doing at the time. And yeah, but hockey, field hockey is still a passion. Sports actually is still a passion. I played soccer, competitive soccer, and volleyball. But field hockey was my number one sport. I still do some coaching here and there. Yeah, so I'm still involved with it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you were doing field hockey and acting at the same time.
I was for a while, yes. Yeah. Yeah. I had a
That's
club. I had a club here in Los Angeles, which the club itself is no longer in existence, which had on its roster some, in fact, some international players who have represented various countries in the Olympics. I had a guy who represented Uganda in the '72 Olympics. I had a couple of guys who represented India in the '80 Olympics, and I had a German player who represented Germany, and a Dutch player on the team who represented Netherlands. So it was a team that had all these international players, and we were one of the best teams in North America at
that's
the time.
cool. So when you were with Team USA, did you travel around a lot playing?
A little bit, not a lot. We did some tours of Jamaica, Canada, West Indies, and places like that. At that time, the U.S. national field hockey team really didn't have much of a budget, but now it's doing much better. It's much more organized, and the team now travels all over the world, participates in a lot of tournaments. But at that time, it wasn't supported that well.
Right. I mean, I would imagine the sport itself has grown since the '70s
Has
and
grown
'80s.
quite a lot, yes. Yeah.
I know there's a lot of universities that have field hockey
Women's
teams
teams,
now.
yeah. Worldwide, it's actually the third most popular sport. Soccer being number one, and then cricket, and then hockey, field hockey.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah.
That's crazy. And then the U.S. is not the top for any of those sports.
No, well, men's team, women's team is actually fairly highly ranked. I think it's number top 10. They have a really good team, but men's team is somewhere around 22nd in the world.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of nations play the game, so it's still it's quite a respectable ranking, I think, still.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think part of it with the U.S. not being is highly ranked. There's so many other sports in the U.S.
There's so many sports here. Yeah, I think we're the only country in the world that has so many professional sports. Most countries will have maybe one or two, and then here almost every sport that you can think of in the world is being played somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these other countries you see during the Olympics, they excel in other sports that the United States doesn't.
Yeah.
But most kids growing up here are playing basketball and hockey and football and baseball and those kind of core sports, when some of these other countries, the focus is on something different that they can excel in. Maybe it's rowing or what, some fencing, a lot of countries.
Oh, yeah.
So something that they can focus more on and is bigger than it is in the US, where there's all these options.
Yeah.
So you've had all kinds of interesting things you've done. I mean, we already talked about engineering and field hockey, and that we're going to talk about acting, but you've also founded a theater company and a production company. How did you get the idea to kind of found your own companies?
Well, theater company was sort of an extension of what I was learning at the time. I was at Lee Strasberg Institute in Los Angeles, and being an actor from originally from India, even though I grew up in England, and looking the way I looked way back in the '70s, there really wasn't much of an opportunity for an actor like me. And so I was talking to one of my teachers at the school one day. It's almost like, what do I do? I'm studying acting. I'm very passionate about this. And she said, but she kind of turned me on to theater, actually a playwright from my own country, Rabindranath Tagore. And she said, have you ever read about him, Tagore? I said, no, I know of Tagore. He was a Nobel Prize winner from my country, but I never read him. She said, go read him. So I picked up every book I could find in the library, USC library, UCLA, bookstores locally on Sunset Boulevard. And I was an avid reader at that time. I don't read as much. I love reading. And so I read almost every book, everything he has ever written. And he had written a lot of plays, prose, poetry, stories. And I started staging some of his plays. And in order to do that, I just formed my own theater company called the Wandering Players. And the reason we call it the Wandering Players is because we didn't have a theater of our own. So I would just, literally go around Hollywood begging other theater owners to let me stage my plays there. And that's how that's what we did. I ran the theater company for about 6, 7 years until I started getting busy in television, seeing it elsewhere, so forth.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
The Wandering Players.
Yeah.
So then, did your production company came after?
Yeah, around the time when I got onto St. Elsewhere, I always wanted, and I could see the limitation that I had as an actor, and I always wanted to have a little better control on my life, my career, and I started a production company. I did some smaller productions early on, but now it has grown to the point that we produce some fairly good films. I do some Bollywood style films as well that I actually shoot them here. I did a feature film that I shot in England. So in Canada, I've done a couple of projects. So I try and produce as much as I can into this company. It's called Kavi Raz Studios. And I also distribute films theatrically. And so it's all like one thing became an extension of another. Actually, it kind of all came out of a need, a need for me to create projects for myself. And when I did, I couldn't get them distributed, so I started a distribution company. And I also, about a year or so ago, launched a streaming platform called CPix, and which is doing quite well. It's available worldwide, and we produce a lot of original content for that as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool. So, do you have your own studios and sets and everything?
yeah, yeah. I have a decent sized studio here. We're actually in the studio. We're in one of our editing rooms here. That's what I'm talking from right now. Yeah, so we have post production facilities, a stage. We carry a lot of equipment, so we shoot a lot of the stuff on our own stages and do our own post production. Yeah.
Would you say it took you a long time to grow your company? Was that difficult?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, something like this takes a lot of, like a financials, backing. I poured a lot of my own money into this, and then I got some partners, and yeah, the whole process takes a lot of time and effort, and just sticking with it. And there are times when you start something like this, that you become to this sort of pivotal point where it doesn't seem like things are working out, but but when you can kind of ride over that hurdle is when things actually start falling in place. And that's always the most difficult point, to get over that hurdle and just staying with it,
Yeah,
staying with it. Yeah.
I suppose that would be true for starting any business. It
Any
kind of
business.
just
Yep, exactly.
applies
Yeah.
across the board.
Yeah. Because nothing's easy, it's then everybody would succeed, I think, if it was.
Right. You see so often people start restaurants and they fold within the first 2 years,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they struggle managing it. I think some people when they start businesses, they go in with the mindset that if I own the business, I'll have to do less work and I can just make somebody else do all the work and
No, it's the other way around, actually. Yeah.
right.
And
Yeah.
I've always been a hard worker. That's one thing that just doesn't, I don't fear that. Um, when we first came to this country, I was barely 15, and we came from England. Like, we grew up in England. My brother and myself came here first. We actually worked in the fields and in orchards picking fruit in Northern California, working 12, 13, 14 hours a day in hot, sun, in hot summer months, June, July, August. Um, so used to hard work, used to long hours, and I still maintain that sort of lifestyle, and that doesn't
Yeah.
bother me. Yeah,
Yeah, you look at a lot of people who started successful businesses or they became successful actors.
Yeah.
in whatever field their business is in, they didn't have it easy right from the get-go. They had to work hard to get where they're at. You have to have the right mindset to operate a business. You have to know that it takes hard work, and yeah, I've talked to so many actors that went through very tough times before they got to the success in their careers.
Yeah. Persevere. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, it's just a good motto for life. Whatever you're doing, you have
Exactly.
to be a hard worker. You can't just kind of lazily go through it and expect
No,
good results.
no. Hard work always pays.
So let's talk about MASH. The episode you were in was UN, the Night in the Music.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know, there were kind of three storylines going on. There was a doctor, a group from the UN, one from England, yourself from India, and then somebody from Sweden. And
Yeah.
the guy from Sweden was courted by Major Houlihan, and he had his set of problems. Charles had his arguments with the guy from England, trying to compare himself, and then your storyline was helping Colonel Potter and Klinger with their stress relief.
Wow. Yeah. Yoga. God, I didn't remember the episode. The details. Wow. It's been such a long time. You know,
Yeah.
I almost didn't end up not doing that episode because I was doing Saint Elsewhere at the same time. And then this came about, and I went out to see the producers. I auditioned for it, and I got it. And I had a hard time juggling our schedules. But then I got talked to the producers. I said, like, I gotta do MASH. You know, the MASH is such a classic show. I gotta be on this. I didn't want to have. So they allowed me a day off um, because there was one conflicting day in there. So they allowed me that day off, rescheduled my stuff on St. Elsewhere, and I was able to go shoot this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and I'm glad I did do that because it's one of those things that such an iconic show, such a, I mean, it comes up all the time.
Right.
And,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was so successful. I mean, if you how many people watched the finale? I mean, it was one of the most watched. I think at the time it was the most watched TV
most
finale
watched
ever.
finale of any show. Yeah, and then the episode I did with this was the third from the last of the final season. So it was towards the end of the finale, and it was the first, the only probably the first of the three episodes shot on a sound stage because MASH had this set out by Malibu where they used to shoot, and for all those years that's where they shot, and that set caught fire. It was burned down.
Yeah.
So for the last three episodes, they moved on to 20th Century Fox stage, and that's where my episode was shot.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Huh.
Yeah,
So you
now, yeah,
I mean, there's so many wonderful actors, that were
oh,
on the show that I mean,
yeah,
just giants in the industry that
oh
you got
yeah.
to just work with for a little bit. That had to just be awesome.
Yeah, well, at that time, especially, I mean, I was just starting my career, and to be, I remember the first day of it was a table read where they had wine on the table, and I didn't drink, and I sipped wine that day because I just don't want to seem like I was the odd one out. Uh, it was table read, and everybody having so much fun, and I was just mesmerized that I was among all these giants that people that have been watching for years. And
Yeah.
here, sitting at the same table, reading a script with them. And then of course, I get to act with them. It was pretty
Right.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to share some direct scenes with Harry Morgan because you were
Yeah.
with Colonel Potter. I mean, you had
Yeah.
obviously scenes with Alan Alda
Yeah.
and all of the actors, but
And they were wonderful
yeah,
people. They were wonderful actors. Just amazing people. Very, very helpful
yeah,
and kind.
and it
Yeah.
still has a huge impact today. I mean, there's still MASH super fans today. They air the finale on the anniversaries on TV, and people still tune in to watch it. I mean, I'm going to be 24 in June, and it's one of my favorite shows ever.
And see, every generation is finding shows like that and then watching them as if they're just happening, unfolding right now, which is great.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
forever relevant. Yeah.
yeah. I've
Awesome.
probably seen. There's probably some episodes I've seen 10 or 15 times. I
Wow.
I just watch over and over, and I'll start at episode 1 and I'll watch the entire series. It's just
Oh,
there's something about
amazing.
it. It seems more. I don't know, more genuine, more creative than some modern shows are. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. There's just I feel like it seemed like the actors put more effort into it. You know, you watch some shows now and it seems like they're just trying to pump it out and get more.
Yeah, that's so. When I TV now, sometimes what it's so disjointed, I think, or too complicated. Um, and like Smash, the chemistry among the actors was so amazing. Writing was so good, and I think had a very simple sort of a setup that was easy to follow, easy to be part. You almost felt like you were there watching these people living their lives, and I
Yeah.
think that's wonderful TV if if you can achieve that kind of a thing.
Yeah, you really felt connected to the
Yeah,
characters. I mean, you
yeah,
really did over the years. The main characters that were the core group, you really felt a connection. I mean, I know personally, I get very sad when I watch the final episode. I mean, it's an emotional episode. You almost
yeah.
feel like you know those people, and they're going home, and you're never going to see them again.
Never see them. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's always a good show or movie when it can actually you feel connected to the
Oh yeah,
characters.
absolutely.
Well, let's talk about Saint Elsewhere now. Um, you were Doctor, like I said, Doctor Vijay Kochar on
Yeah,
the on Saint Elsewhere, and you were one of the first Southeast Asian actors to land a main role on a sitcom, right?
yeah. On any TV show, I was the first South Asian actor to land a regular role on a TV series, and it was quite a proud moment. And at a time when it was really difficult for actors coming from my part of the world to land any sort of a role because it just wasn't written. And I remember even on Saying Elsewhere, writers were always struggling as to what to write for me for my character because they just didn't know enough, and they wanted to keep that sort of a cultural background to the character real. Um, Nowadays, where the South Asian community is such a part of the general landscape of what America is. Back then, 35, 40 years ago, it wasn't so. And
Yeah,
it was very difficult. So it was a wonderful feeling that, hey, I'm doing something that kind of, setting a trend, something new, something fresh. Yeah.
right. I noticed that I've watched part of the first season, and I noticed that some of the story with your characters, you're away from home and you're struggling to fit in.
Yeah.
Kind of like the same story you were just talking about in real life, but your character's struggling to fit in. You have an accent, you don't speak the language perfectly, and there's
Right.
certain other doctors that maybe look down on
Every
you as a doctor, and
Yeah.
yeah, wonderful cast in that show too. I mean,
Oh,
just
amazing cast. Yeah.
tremendous
Wonderful.
cast.
Yeah.
It's funny to watch it and see Howie Mandel with hair.
Yeah, I mind that was there. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Norman Lloyd, who passed away, what, 3, 4 years ago? 3 years ago, I think. Norman Lloyd, um, whenever I had the opportunity to speak with him on the set, um, which was kind of rare, he was a very reserved sort of an individual. But stories he would tell, he was a guy, an actor who had worked with Charlie Chaplin. He went that far back,
Yeah,
the
that's
beginnings of
crazy.
the industry, yeah. And he would tell us stories about Charlie Chaplin, being on the set with Charlie Chaplin. And here he was in St. Elsewhere with us, young actress.
Yeah,
And Bill Daniels and all these wonderful, Denzel Washington, who was just starting out his career as well. And, look where he went. Yeah, it was
right.
an amazing cast.
Yeah, a couple. If you look at him and Howie, both the beginnings of their
Yeah,
career, they've both been very successful.
right.
Um, and then there were also multiple MASH connections. You had G.W. Bailey, who was
Joey Bailey, yeah,
Rizzo.
yeah,
Ed Begley Jr. had the one cameo in MASH, and Ed
right.
Flanders had a cameo in MASH.
Exactly, yeah, right.
Kind of funny
Yeah.
that there were four actors on St. Elsewhere that also were on.
Yeah.
Did you know G.W. Bailey like
Yes, I
from
did.
MASH and St. Elsewhere at from doing
Oh,
both
no,
of
I
them?
actually didn't. I actually didn't know that he had done MASH. I found out about that after I did MASH. It
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Oh, so when you were on St. Elsewhere, you didn't know that, like when you were going to do MASH, you had no idea that he had been on
he,
MASH either.
he did not know. I had no idea. No.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I also find that that there's some similarities between St. Elsewhere and MASH, and in that they tackle serious topics, but there's also kind of a comedic effect.
Comedians, yeah, in a humorous sort of way, yeah. They're keeping it light. You're so right. I mean, I didn't think about that. There are similarities in the approach of telling storytelling. Yeah,
Yeah, because I know MASH was one of the kind of first shows that did that, where they tackled some very serious topics that kind of would pull at people and their emotions, but they
right.
also had comedy in there. And
Yeah,
when I started watching St. Elsewhere, there were some very serious episodes that had some serious tones. But then, Howie's character, Dr. Wayne, there, I mean, he's a total jokester and playboy, and
yeah, yeah,
so kind of some interesting similarities between um, MASH and St. Elsewhere.
yeah.
Looking back on your career, do you have a favorite project that you've done?
Oh man, that's hard to say. I'd say MASH. Of course, St. Elsewhere was a great experience, great learning experience. Um, I did a small role on the A team, which I won't say favorite, but one of my favorite A team, because it was one of those shows that I personally liked watching because it was such a light. You didn't have to think about anything, just enjoy all these
Yeah.
crazy characters. Um, it's really hard to say because I did a film called Warning Sign, which I enjoyed being on. Another film, Night Train to Kathmandu, which was shot in Nepal. I liked that experience, being out in Nepal for like 4 or 5 weeks, I think 5 or 6 weeks, shooting out there. That was great. Yeah.
I can imagine, once you've had a long career, it's hard to really narrow it down. And, I mean, the same thing if, I could ask, who was your favorite actor to work with? Well, you've worked with so many phenomenal actors that I imagine it's just hard to pick.
It's pretty
Because,
hard. It really is. Yeah.
yeah, that had to be really beneficial as a young actor, like on St. Elsewhere, to work with, like you mentioned, Norman Lloyd and Ed Flanders on there, and some of these actors that had been around the industry for a very long time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Ed Flanders, multiple Emmy winner, amazing actor, wonderful man. Just being in the presence and learning from them, watching them work was just a class in acting. And and other young actors like Denzel, David Morris, seeing their approach to acting, you learn so much from that. You picked up so much just by being in that atmosphere. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Whatever you're doing in life, when you're starting out, you have to be open to learn. If you go in with the attitude, I know everything,
No, yeah,
generally that
I was
doesn't
never
work.
like that. I'm still not. I mean, even now I end up on a set, whether I'm producing or directing something or acting in something, and I always go with the attitude that I'm going to learn something new. And especially from young people these days, they come with so many different varied sort of maybe not life experiences, but at least approaches to life,
Yeah.
and you can learn from that as well. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It goes both ways. Right. I mean, because the generations are so different. I mean, there's things that young people, excuse me, can help with that maybe people from your generation, the way technology, different things that young people are just kind of naturals at because you grew up doing it.
Yeah.
I've always tried
It,
to.
especially where it comes to technology. I mean, here I am. I come from a technological background, industrial engineer. I learn how to build things, but I'm not very good at operating things. So
Yeah.
I'm always looking for help. How do you do this on the phone? What is this function? And young
Right.
people, the current generation is so good at it. It's just all,
Yeah.
it's almost like it's built-in instinct in them.
Well,
And
and technology's changed so much that,
yeah,
if you go back to the 80s, like say when you were starting your production company, the way computers were, the way cameras were, and then you
yeah,
look at that now, I mean, they've changed so much.
a lot. Yeah, and they're changing every day. So
Yeah.
too much to
It's
keep up
really,
with.
yeah, it's crazy. What they can do with movies now, CGI and artificial,
Oh, AI. Yeah.
you can make a person, I know they've done it in some of the Star Wars movies, where
Yeah.
like there's an actor that passed away and they needed them for a 30-second scene, and they just CGI'd or AI'd that person in there and had a talk,
Yeah.
and it looked fairly realistic.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, now with AI, God knows what's going to happen. Yeah, there are already talks that you can make a complete film using AI technology, and yeah, that the possibilities would be amazing and a bit frightening too at the same time if that were to happen. What happens to actors and writers and directors and so forth.
Right. Yeah, it's very realistic. It's
Yeah.
kind of, like you said, it's kind of scary how
Scary too.
realistic it is. You can type
Yeah.
something into AI, it gives you this image, and if you
Yeah.
put it next to a real picture, it's hard to tell the difference
Yeah.
sometimes. And you
Exactly.
can you can modify real pictures to make them look different. So there's definitely, negative effects to AI. People can
Yeah.
take something and they can spin it to, do whatever they want. I mean, there's
Yeah.
there's benefits and pros and cons for sure. Um, I think hopefully they just use it as a nice blend, right? I don't think replacing actors or but put it where maybe you can't use an actor. Like I was talking to a stunt man, and they said how they kind of use AI and CGI. If maybe they can roll the car in real life 2 times, but they want it to roll 3 or 4, so they'll roll it and then they'll use AI to take over and
Yeah.
finish the scene. So I mean, have
Yeah.
a nice blend.
Yeah. And that would be okay. I mean, if it just helps enhance something, but doesn't totally take away from the originality of the work. And actors are still needed, some people are still needed, writers are still needed, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
So do you have people that do AI and CGI, or would you guys hire other companies for if you need any of that stuff?
Yeah. So far, for CGI, VFX, and we've been hiring companies outside. We are looking into creating a sort of a small division, experimenting with it, especially AI, to see how it can help us enhance some of the projects that we're finding difficult to do at this point. Maybe AI can help us achieve that. There are a couple of period pieces, and I did a couple of period films that I did. They're very difficult to execute, costly, and so if AI can help with those kinds of projects, um, uh, and we are looking into that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have your own staff of writers, or do you hire out for that too?
We have in-house as well as we hire people.
Okay.
I
Kind of
write
just
when I can, but yeah, in the past we have hired people from outside as well.
yeah, it
Writers,
just depends
directors,
on what your needs are.
yeah, depending.
Yeah. Right. I would imagine, in the film industry, you kind of just have to adapt with the changes too, hey?
Yeah, yeah, because I think what works changes from time to time. Well, actually, quite rapid pace. Uh, Storytelling itself has changed so much, and the approach to storytelling has changed. And some of the younger writers have a different approach to telling a story, and so it's always best, I find it, to bring young writers, young thinkers into the fold and see what they have to say.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think that's awesome. I find it very interesting to learn about the behind the scenes and how everything
Yeah.
operates. So as we end the episode, if you had one piece of advice, it doesn't have to be acting specific, but something you wish somebody would have told you when you were younger that you think would have helped with either acting or just kind of life in general, what would your like piece of advice to pass on be?
That's interesting. I think maybe looking at my own life, my own career, is sometimes opportunities come your way from the people that you come in contact with in life, and you don't quite realize that at the time. And uh, I say grabbing hold of those opportunities. When people come into your life, they come for a reason, and um, stay in touch with them, and don't be afraid to ask. And I was never like that. I mean, I was always reserved about um, asking for things, for favors, and expanding on some of the opportunities that came my way. I just took it as, oh, it happened. But people who were able to do that, grab a small opportunity and make something bigger out of it, succeeded much, faster in life than especially in my career than I did. I think that would be my biggest advice. Things will come your way. Get a hold of them, realize what's there, and make something more important out of it. Don't let go of that moment. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. Thank you. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I kind of made it my goal. I want to kind of make a list of some of my favorite shows and movies, and I want to
Mhm.
talk to at least one actor or somebody that's had something to do with that show. So now I can check MASH off the list.
Great.
Hopefully, we can talk to some
Yeah,
other MASH actors that are still around, but at least can check it off for sure now.
great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and um, good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes soon.